What would make you tear your way out of your own home, fleeing into sub-zero temperatures, with no hope of survival? This is not a hypothetical question. It is the central, chilling mystery at the heart of one of the world's most baffling cold cases. A story not of a single death, but of 9. A puzzle set on a remote, unforgiving mountainside in Siberia, where the clues point not to a human killer, but to something else. This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass incident. It began as an adventure. In January of 1959, a group of 10 experienced Soviet ski hikers, led by a man named Igor Dyatlov, set out on an expedition into the northern Ural Mountains. Their goal was to reach a mountain called Otorten. These were not tourists. They were students and engineers from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, hardened by previous treks, their skills rated the highest in the Soviet system. They were prepared for the harsh winter. They were prepared for anything. But they never returned. When they missed their scheduled check-in, a search party was launched. What they found on the slopes of Koletsykel, a name that would later be translated as Mountain of the Dead, would ignite a mystery that burns to this day. The first discovery was their tent. But it was not a scene of shelter. It was a scene of panic. The tent was partially collapsed and slashed open from the inside. The hikers' belongings, their boots, their coats, their warmest supplies, were all left behind. And leading away from the tent, scattered in the deep snow, were a series of footprints. But these weren't the prints of people walking. They were the prints of people running. Running barefoot, or in nothing but their socks, into the heart of a raging winter storm, where the temperature was minus 25 degrees Celsius and falling. The searchers followed the trail of footprints down into a sparse forest, near the edge of the tree line. And there, they began to find the bodies. The first 2 were discovered under a large cedar tree. They were barely clothed. There were signs they had tried to start a fire, clawing at the bark of the tree, as if one of them had tried to climb it. Their cause of death was clear: hypothermia. But the mystery was only beginning. Days later, they found 3 more bodies, including that of the group leader, Igor Dyatlov. They were found in various positions, all on a direct path back towards the tent, as if, in their final, frozen moments, they were trying to return to the safety they had so frantically abandoned. Hypothermia, again, was the official cause. But then, months later, with the spring thaw, the final 4 bodies were discovered. They were in a ravine, partially buried in snow. And with them, the mystery twisted from the bizarre into the horrifying. 3 of these last 4 had suffered catastrophic internal injuries. Broken ribs, shattered chests. A doctor would later compare the force to that of a car crash. But bizarrely, there was no external trauma. No bruises, no lacerations. It was as if they had been crushed by an immense, invisible pressure. One of the women, Ludmila Dubinina, was missing her tongue. Her eyes were gone. Her lips were missing. To this day, the official explanation is that this was the work of scavengers. But it remains a deeply unsettling detail in an already terrifying tableau. The official Soviet investigation was swift. They closed the case, declaring the cause of death to be a compelling natural force. What does that even mean? It's a phrase designed to end questions, not answer them. The files were sealed. The area was closed to hikers for years. But the questions refused to die. Because every theory put forward to explain what happened only leads to more unsettling questions. Was it an avalanche? That is the most popular modern theory. But an avalanche would have buried the tent completely.
Check out this terrifying
It wouldn't
footage.
explain why the victims walked away under their own power. It wouldn't explain the lack of external injuries on the ones with crushed chests. And why would an avalanche cause them to slash their way out, instead of simply unzipping the door? Perhaps it was a military accident. The area was near a secret missile testing range. Could they have stumbled upon something? Been exposed to some kind of sonic weapon or chemical agent that induced panic? Some of their belongings were found to be highly radioactive. But again, there is no proof, only circumstantial evidence and the shadow of Cold War secrecy. Then, there are the darker, more speculative theories. Did they encounter a hostile group of indigenous Mansi people? The investigation found no evidence of a struggle, or any other human presence. Could it have been a Yeti, a Siberian snowman? The stuff of folklore, but the bizarre injuries and the missing tongue fuel such fears. And then, there are the truly otherworldly explanations. UFOs. Strange, glowing orange spheres were reported in the sky by other hikers in the area in the weeks leading up to the incident. Could the group have seen something? Something so terrifying that it triggered a primal, irrational flight response. The evidence is a maddening jigsaw puzzle where the pieces don't fit. The panicked flight suggests an immediate, overwhelming threat. The separation of the group suggests they were disoriented. The catastrophic injuries suggest a physical force of immense power. But no single theory connects all these dots perfectly. The Dyatlov Pass incident is a true crime story without a criminal. A horror story with the sea does not like to give up its secrets. It guards them in the deep, dark trenches, whispering them only to the waves and the wind. But sometimes it leaves a clue on the shore. A single, unsettling piece of a puzzle that makes no sense. A mystery that begins not with a scream, but with a silence. This is the story of that silence. It begins in the cold, churning waters of the North Atlantic, on a remote, jagged island known as Eilean Mor, the largest of the Flannan Isles. In December of the year 1900, 3 men stood as guardians on that rock. Thomas Marshall, James Duckett, and Donald MacArthur. Their sole purpose was to keep the lighthouse burning, a solitary beacon of civilization in a vast, unforgiving wilderness. The first sign that something was terribly wrong came from the sea. On December 15th, the steamer Archtour, passing by on its route from Philadelphia to Leith, noted that the Flannan Isles light was dark. This was more than unusual. It was unthinkable. The lamp was the heart of the keeper's existence. Its failure to ignite was a scream in the night. But on the mainland, no one could hear that scream. Not yet. The scheduled relief vessel, the Hesperus, was delayed for over a week due to a savage storm. It wasn't until December 26th, Boxing Day, that Captain Jim Harvey and his crew could make the crossing. As they approached Eilean Mor, they were met with an ongoing silence. No flag flew from the flagpole. No keepers waved from the landing. The lighthouse itself stood tall and imposing, but strangely inert. The crew sounded the ship's horn and fired a signal rocket into the gray sky. The only response was the echo bouncing off the cliffs and the relentless crash of the waves. An unease, cold and sharp, settled over the men on the Hesperus. They knew, even then, that they were not approaching a simple mechanical failure. They were approaching an enigma. Joseph Moore, a relief keeper, was sent ashore in the dinghy. His climb up the steep, 200-foot path was a journey into growing dread. The main gate and the outer door of the lighthouse were both locked. He used his own key to enter the quiet, cold building. "Hello? Is anyone here?" His call was swallowed by the stillness. The living quarters were tidy, almost unnervingly so. The clock on the wall had stopped. The fire in the grate was long dead, nothing but cold ash. In the kitchen, the remains of a meal were set on the table, but it told a confusing story. There was a chair, overturned near the fireplace, as if someone had risen in a hurry. But the table itself was set meticulously, with a pot of stew and a plate of meat, suggesting a meal interrupted mid-preparation, not mid-consumption. Moore's heart hammered against his ribs. He raced up the spiral staircase to the lamp room. The door was closed, but unlocked. He pushed it open. The great lamp was clean, primed, and ready. The wicks had been trimmed. The oil reservoirs were full. It was a machine in perfect order, waiting only for a hand to light it. A hand that had vanished. He ran back down, his footsteps echoing in the hollow silence. He checked the sleeping quarters. The beds were empty, unslept in. The men's oilskins were gone. Only 2 of the 3 were missing, however. Thomas Marshall's oilskin coat still hung on its peg. Why would a seasoned lighthouse keeper, facing the ferocious weather of the North Atlantic, venture outside without his protective coat? The official logbook provided the final, chilling clues. The last entry was dated December 15th, the same day the Archtour had noted the light was dark. The log described a storm of biblical proportions, with winds that shrieked like the damned. But the keeper who wrote it, Thomas Marshall, also noted that he had ventured out to secure a supply crate at the landing stage. His final, haunting words were, "Storm ended, sea calm. God is over all. God is over all." What did that mean? A prayer of thanks for surviving? Or a final, resigned acknowledgement of a power far greater than their own? An official investigation was launched, but it only deepened the mystery. They discovered something bizarre at the landing stage, West Landing. It was a scene of violent disruption. Iron railings, bent and twisted, were torn from their concrete foundations. A storage crate, weighing over a ton, had been moved from its position. And on the rock face, about 100 feet above the sea, a mark, as if a rope had been tied there, was found scraped and scarred. Theories bloomed like poisonous flowers. The most popular was that 2 of the keepers had gone out to secure the equipment during the storm. A massive, freak wave, a rogue wave, must have surged up the cliff face, sweeping them into the boiling sea. The 3rd keeper, witnessing this horror, had rushed down in a desperate, futile rescue attempt, perhaps without his oilskin in his panic, only to be consumed by the sea himself. But the clues refused to fit neatly into this box. The overturned chair suggested a sudden, indoor alarm. The stopped clock could indicate a specific time of catastrophe. And why was the main gate locked from the outside? If the men were swept away, who locked the gate? Then came the darker theories. Was it murder? A sudden, violent quarrel in that isolated pressure cooker, leading to a struggle, deaths, and a cover-up that ended in the sea? Or something else? The superstitious whispered of malevolent spirits, of the islands being haunted by the phantoms of the 7 hunters, as the Flannan Owls were sometimes called. They spoke of sea serpents, of alien abductions, of forces beyond our understanding. The official report closed the case, citing the men being swept away by a terrible storm. But it was a verdict designed for paperwork, not for peace of mind. Because the truth is, we will never know what happened on Eilean Moor in those final, desperate hours. We are left only with the evidence of absence. A stopped clock. An untouched meal. A missing coat. A locked gate. And 3 men.